Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Sherry Turquoise. Today's video is going to be a tea time video and an announcement to my Nanowrimo project. So this video will be up and sometime in October. With the tea, I am just drinking water and this. So fair warning, this is going to be a long video because I'm going to be talking about all the books that I have written so far and where I got the ideas from or what inspired me with those ideas and what has made me stuck through them and write as a writer as a writer. Dal posted a video a couple of months ago about her inspiration on her story and what inspired her on her writing. I will leave a link down below to her channel and to the video of that. And I'm here to talk about each of my story and where the inspiration came from. So I'm going to start with the one that I don't have a physical copy with me, which is the novella. Novellas are fiction stories, however, in this situation I have just been calling it a novella because that is the word count for it. This story is based on true events of my life with no names, no descriptions. It is in a first person point of view with no names and no descriptions, but it is in the character's point of view of what has happened in my life in a 22 year gap, roughly. So what I actually been working on this project since I was in high school, however, because it was always so close to home and not in a positive way, I just could never finish it. So I actually been working on and off with it and constantly rewriting it to see if there's a way I could finish it. I have finished it while living in this apartment and working part-time as a daytime retail person. I got that done last year, I believe it was last year or the year before. I think it's been a year ago at least since I got it done. However, I'm going to do a complete 180 on it and change it to a fiction story. It technically has gone through beta reading. It still is in the beta reading. However, that is a book I am probably never going to publish for the public eye unless I can really change that story by a lot and change it to a horror story of some sort, because I am extremely close to it. So that is a story that I probably would never publish. One day I would like to, it's just that I'm not planning on to right now. I might in like 20 to 30 years when I can see it from a more wiser perspective, but right at this moment only really close friends are beta reading this book, and that is it. I'm not really planning on publishing it at this moment, but it's been the work in progress of it, so that's why a couple of videos I have mentioned it, but I have never gone into full details, and this is why. That book will be an inspiring for certain plots of my other stories, but the book itself will probably never get published. I might change my mind on this one. Like I said, 20, 30, maybe even 40 years from now when I can look at it from a more wisdom perspective, but just not right now. Because I actually mostly wrote that book for just getting it off my chest with what happened as a therapy kind of way, because I actually did go into therapy, but therapy really wasn't working for me, so I ended up just writing it down into that novel. And like I said, only really close friends are reading this book, but the book is never going to be published at this moment, or maybe never. It's just something that I'm gonna just keep to myself and just give it to a couple really close family members and a couple really close friends. I will probably show you guys on how to format and how to make a book cover with that book, because that will actually be one of the better projects. But I'll probably use that book, if not another book that I have finished for quite a while, for the formatting and how to do so. Anyways, I'm done talking about that novel. I'm glad that I got it written down. I keep saying I'm done, but I'm not. I'm glad I got everything written down. It actually has helped quite a lot. I'm glad I wrote it. I might do a sequel to it in about 10 years when I have about college and my experience with the academic upgrading. I might go into that. Maybe. Anyways, the next project that I'm finished and technically have rewrote now into an adult horror dark fantasy, which I'm going to get to next. This one is Ghosties. This one I wrote for a assignment for English during high school, and this is about a teen girl named Luna, I think? No, Sherry. There we go. In high school, this is based in Owen Sound with a private school. When I wrote this, there was no private school, so that is a fiction thing, but the location is actually real. This is a young adult paranormal I wrote in 30 days. I'm actually glad I wrote this. This made me actually realize that writing young adult is not really meant for me, because I don't like the restraint that young adult has. I like to give out as much details as I can with horror. Anyways, this idea got inspired by actually one main thing that inspired me was the fact that people did not accept people with disabilities or people that were unique and extremely different from the average person, so they end up not accepting them and picking on them. So that's where the story got inspired from. Before I continue, you're going to notice a little bit of a theme. So I'm actually planning on using this story again for an outline, not for the horror dark fantasy, for Sherry's Luna's point of view again, for her story, but in a adult version. But she is still going to be a teenager, but it's still going to be an adult story. And this story is about Sherry Luna gets framed for murdering someone when she is completely innocent, and two supernatural police people try to prove she is innocent during this time. And during this chaos, she finds out that her missing friend is... I don't mind giving the plot away, because the plot might completely change when I rewrite this again. That her friend has been pronounced dead. or missing for 5 to 10 years, and then she finds him in a hunter's headquarters prison alive. Before she even got there, and before she finds out she gets framed, she develops a ability of seeing ghosts one day, just randomly actually. She just develops seeing ghosts, which is a underwritten story, and I didn't flesh on how she got her powers or why she got them. And I was actually planning on writing this into a trilogy, or at least a duology. Yeah, that's basically all I could remember was this story. So this got inspired on how people were treating the people with disabilities, how they were not accepted, and how people that were extremely different from them and unique did not get accepted. So that inspired this story. I stuck it out because it was an assignment at the time, but unfortunately my English teacher decided not to mark it and gave it to me actually literally 10 minutes later, telling me she was not going to mark it, even though she gave it to me as a bonus assignment to give me something to do because I was ahead in class. So it would have counted as bonus marks. But it didn't, and I ended up trying to edit this by myself. It is a novella because it's so short and there's only 7 chapters to it, which I'm still quite proud of myself just for finishing this in 30 days. It's not my best work, but it's definitely something I'm very proud of. Ghosties actually is a title that I made up, and now I realize that the title is a very bad choice for this book, and same with the cover picture, but I never liked my manuscripts with the blank page. That is just from a random Google pic, and Ghosties I just made up the spur of the moment. And this is before I came up with a pen name. I was just using my actual name. Next is the book that I am in the first draft of editing, the Horror Dark Fantasy, the Spirit Dragon series, book 1, and the book with multiple point of views. I've only talked about this book a couple of times, as you know, more than a couple, enough times to have people know that this is going to be my debut novel. There is roughly 44 chapters with 15 point of views. Yes, 15 point of views. I have mentioned this a couple of times in the live streams or live streams comments, and each and every single time I have brought this up, it has gone quite a bit of shock faces, or the question is, how do you keep all the characters straight? I will omit this one right now, specifically the twins, because they're brought up in the exact same location, the royalty, Elo and Eli in a way. I actually had a hard time keeping all the point of views straight, specifically with the twins, because their personalities and that were remarkably similar, like identical twins, almost identical personalities. I had tried to flesh out the opposite parts of their personalities to distinguish who I was writing in. It also helped that I did at the chapter, I will also write down the name of the character's point of view that I was writing in. So if I stopped partway through the chapter and took a break and then came back to, let's say, a couple of days later, then I could just see whose character point of view I was writing in and just reread what I have wrote just to get re-caught up. Believe it or not, I actually really tried writing this in one point of view, the main character Tacy, and then I actually hit a roadblock, a really big roadblock actually. writer's block. And then an idea actually struck me a couple of months later, and I realized I need to write this in more than one character's point of view. So I tried writing it in 2 point of views, and then I just hit another roadblock. And so I upped it to 3 characters and point of views, and the exact same result happened. And then it's like, okay, and I read the work, and then I realized, like, okay, I need to add some of the side characters' point of views, because they're kind of main characters, but they're not main characters, but they have enough of a story of their own to be part of the plot and to have their own point of views. So I started adding them, and it was starting to flush out, and then I hit another roadblock. So it took another break, not as long, and I read the work, and it's like, okay, the realms. There's where my main problem was, because I was mostly focusing on the one realm, and then I realized I need 2 realms, and then I realized, like, oh, I need to really flesh out some of these other realms I have included, and I cannot have this one main character, Tacy, at 5 realms at one time, because that would be giving her way too much power, and she's not there yet. B, she would pass out on instantly as soon as she split her soul that many times. She's not quite there yet. She can only split her soul twice. Half to stay in the living, and the other half to do traveling in the other dimensions and the other realms and the afterlife. So there was no way for her to do 5 other realms and portal travel to each and every single one and still be connected to the living realm without having her living body suffering huge consequence. Basically passing out. So it's like, okay, I need to add more character point of views, because these realms are part of the story and part of the realms dying, so readers need to see what's happening to each and every single one of these realms. And then Sherry Luna is in here as well. This is years later. I'm trying to explain the story without giving too much away. And she is the protector of this realm. So it's like, okay, I need her point of view because she is the protector of this realm, and she is helping the Reapers. Then there's the hunters, who automatically I need 2, which I automatically need 2 to 3 point of views, because one is the leader, the other one's the second in command, and the third is the one that just got free from brainwashing, and who is just waking up, and who also is another main character, but discovers who she is, kind of stuff. So that quickly added up to 10 point of views. And then I realized after that, like, oh, I need the Guardian's point of view, or at least I can get rid of the Guardian's group point of view. I realize this now. But it would be extremely hard to delete the youngest Guardian member's point of view, because there will be a little bit of a confusion going on, because he is helping out with the major plot. And then there is the other character who is trying to keep Tacy safe, and he is a vampire who is the ruler of the vampire realm who is trying to keep Tacy safe from the hunters, keep her hidden from the commander himself. So his point of view needed to be shown because he is her, in a way, a protector and trying to also re-earn her trust. And then there's Ela's and Elo's point of view, which those two are also main characters and what's happening to their realms. And then there's the 7 council members. I have to relook at this to see if I can get away with some of the point of views, some of the council members in one chapter as their point of view to show what's going on, and get rid of the other chapters with their point of views. I have to see if I can do that. Also, this book is also going to be in a 7-book series, or at least plan on it. I actually spoke to someone about this over the phone, and I got talking to them and realized, like, oh, this is going to be at least 7 books, because I did a summary of what each book is going to be about. And there is something in this book that is going to be ended that needs to stay in here, which is the I'm not going to say what it is because it's a spoiler. But basically, it starts off in this book, but then it gets forgotten all about it in the second book. But at the very end, people realize that, oh, what has happened in this one is going to be happening in book 3 because how book 2 is going to end. If that makes sense. So I am trying to narrow this down, but I realize this book cannot be in 4 points of view. That is physically impossible because of how complex the plot is. I can narrow it down to probably, I'll be pushing it, I can probably narrow it down to 10 points of views. It'll be a really big push. It would mean I might have to alternate the plot just ever so slightly. I know with the endings of certain characters' point of views, I can add on to their one chapter that's just going to have them, but I'll have to rewrite the chapter somehow. So this is me trying to figure out how to do this story and try to keep the plot intact without sounding confusing, because I cannot 100% get rid of all 15 point of views and narrow it down to just 5. That the plot is just too complex for that to narrow it down to that few character point of views. Like I said, I've tried writing it in 1 point of view. It's just, it won't make much sense in 1 character's point of view, and it won't make sense in 2. I've tried writing it down with small character point of views. It's just not physically possible to write this novel in that short amount of point of views. I've tried, and I hit multiple roadblocks. Well, not multiple, but good big ones anyway. So I can definitely end it in 10 point of views, because you're also seeing the villain's point of view as well. Because they think they're the heroes, but we get to see their point of views on why they think they're the heroes, and other characters' point of views on why they are the villain. So you get to see that point of view. And you get the point of view of the demon that gets summoned quite a bit. So he also has his own story in this as well, to a certain degree. He has enough of a story in here that he kind of needs his own point of view. So what inspired me of this one? This one is actually the adult version of Ghosties. So people having a hard time accepting people for who they are and that they are extremely different. And the disability thing comes in with this story as well. Yeah, people can't have a hard time accepting people with disability and people being extremely different and unique from my experience in high school. So that's where that inspiration came with both of these stories. Again, this is the adult version of this one, of Ghosties, which is the young adult, which I'm planning on changing it up drastically for share a reason in the story when that time comes. I was actually hoping to avoid talk about this book until I found a title, but I will do another announcement when I get there. Yeah, I have not found a title to this yet, and I know I can shrink it down to be pushing it for 10, but for sure 11, 12 point of views, because there's 5 rounds in this first book, and the second book is going to have more rounds in it, so I need to keep them straight, and there's going to be more characters, so this series is going to be a fun one to write, because there's going to be at least 10 point of views if I'm right with this calculations for the whole story of this main plot to make absolute sense. I am planning on send this out to beta readers soon. What's actually stopping me from doing it right now is that I don't know if I'm going to be done the first draft editing when I upload this video. And the fact that I know a lot of people don't like reading a lot of point of views, more than 4 point of views. And this one going to have at least 10 to 12 by the time it's done. So I know that makes me slam on the brakes pretty quick, because I know a lot of readers don't like reading point of views with that many character point of views in a story. As I get beta feedback saying that, hey, you can delete this kind of thing and here's how, with feedback, and the story will still make sense. It's just, I'm going by my gut right now. It's just that at this moment, unfortunately, I won't be able to narrow it down to no more than 10 to 12 characters' point of views. So I know I'm going to have a hard time finding beta readers when I have that many point of views, and the genre itself is going to be hard too to find beta readers, because it is a horror dark fantasy, and I've been noticing that a lot of people don't read horror, and if they do, it's a non-gruesome one. And my book has a lot of trigger warnings, which I will read to you. This book contains child abuse, child neglect, sexual assault, drugs use, child slavery, women's slavery, blood, guts, and gore, killing, and swearing. If not comfortable with any of these topics, please put the book down. So those are all the trigger warnings, and I know there's a couple of authors or writers that we agreed to exchange manuscripts, but I'm not going to force them to read something that they are not comfortable reading. I do have other projects on the go, so if they want to read them instead, I totally understand when that time comes. So I just know I'm going to hit some challenges with this book. More challenges anyway than what I'm already reaching. So yeah. That is my crazy book project. Am I happy how the story has turned out? Yes, I am. I'm glad that I have finally figured out how I'm going to write it. Now the goal is to try to keep the plot straightforward and not have it confusing, because I already have rounds time in different time zone laughing kind of thing, very on the confusing end. And I know I explained how that works in 2, maybe no more than 3 rounds, but I have not explained how that works in all the rounds, because I was hoping to do that in different books. So I'm hoping to have that straightened out and keep the plot of it, because when I explained the plot to people interested in it, when they heard the whole, when I talked about the story, what it's about, they even admit that the story sounds like real life and it sounds extremely complex. It didn't really sink in on how complex this book is until I finished it and got really thinking about it. So yeah, that is my story on this one and how I got inspired and how I'm gonna try to narrow this down to 10 to 12 point of views. I have an idea how I'm gonna do this. It's just whether I can keep the story making sense. If I can do this, I can. If not, I know I'm gonna need to go for beta readers, and hopefully I can find some to see if betas and critiques to see if they can help me on this one. Because I have talked about my book. I have talked about my story. Where I have a few people excited. I just never told them how many point of views this book has after telling them what the story is about. I left that part out because that's normally the thing that scares a lot of people. So that is my crazy story on this guy. And now for the moment of truth. Oh wait, no, there's still my Camp Nanowrimo one. So my Camp Nanowrimo one, The Rise of the Spirit Dragons, book 1 of the Supernatural series, and the prequel to the Spirit Dragon series. This project got inspired actually as I was writing the horror dark fantasy novel, because I realized that I'm not exactly giving off a clear answer on what the situation has happened and how it happened. So I realized then that I needed to put that story into a prequel, and that is exactly what's happened, because it's the history of that realm and explaining how the realms got created and what's going on and how some of these realms are in the situation that they are in, because that doesn't really get told in any of the 7 books in the the Spirit Dragon series. I realized that pretty quick. Well, not quick, but basically when I finished 3/4 finished that book. Another thing that inspired me is that I got thinking of, well, what if our dimension was different, and what if we were more advanced in our medicine, and what if we were more at peace with ourselves? What would our world look like? And I got inspired by that, because I also got looking out the window and seeing people getting along, and that's like, oh, I wonder what our world would look like if that was like that as a whole planet. And then from there it's like, okay, what would the conflict be, which would be a war of a traitor and a war from that traitor kind of thing. It is a novella, but it is a dark fantasy horror kind of thing. More dark fantasy than horror, because it doesn't really have any supernatural sections in it. It's more dark fantasy than anything, because it mainly focuses on the spirit dragons themselves. It doesn't really go there's other supernatural kinds, yes, and that's where the horror section comes in, but it doesn't really focus on them. It just focuses on this one supernatural kind called the spirit dragons, because they're the ones that were originally created. and I also like space and the solar systems and that, but it's not really science fiction. And yeah, that's basically a summary of that one. I'm not quite finished that story yet, but I will be aiming to have that one done on the April Camp Nanowrimo, so it will be done the first draft sometime in 2021. And finally, my Nanowrimo project. This project was going to be a dark fantasy science fiction, but I realized that the science fiction is not going to be really in it because of how the story is beginning. It is technically started as this book actually was supposed to be a prequel to the original first story. However, now this one is going to be book 1 of this series. I haven't quite come up with a proper title to it. The first title was I'm going to be labeling it as fan fiction because I call it Guardians and the 13 Ghosts. So it's kind of like a fan fiction, but fantasy because it was my own characters. But those titles were technically taken, both titles. So yeah, so I'm just labeling that as fan fiction that I never posted online. I just kept that one to myself. And then yeah, that's the one I wrote 7 books to it already. So yeah, that's I'm planning on rewriting all of them. And the years later, and I think the next time I looked at it was while I was at the other apartment, I think. No, I moved here when I decided to relook at it. And I wrote it down in a notebook, but it's somewhere on my desk, and I'm not gonna dig it out because my desk is messy right now. And then I hit a roadblock on that because I was only writing in. This book is also going to be in more than one point of view, but not as many as the Horror Dark Fantasy one. Or at least I'm hoping it would be like that. Anyways, this Dark Fantasy one was in 4 point of views and the notebook, I believe, and then I hit a roadblock. No, it wasn't 6 point of views. 4 point of views. I believe it was in 6 to 8 point of views because it was in the point of views of the villains and the 4 main characters going on 5, and then eventually would be. Okay, so originally it was supposed to have 3 character point of views, but then I realized that wasn't physically possible, so then I upped it to 4. And the 4th character won't be the main character until later on. And then I realized as I was writing this, there's going to be 5 main characters point of views, including the villains. So there's going to be at least 6 to 8 point of views in this book in total. However, 2 of the characters are not main characters in the first book, but they do become main characters eventually in this series. I don't have a series title yet because it's been constantly changing, and I have rewrote this story about 3 to 4 times already. So this one is it actually is a very complex one, but even more complex than what I realized. So this one is about immortal creatures, some supernatural being even more powerful than immortals, and that they're the ones that have created the immortals, which is the gods and goddesses, but also the immortal creatures are looked as gods and goddesses as well. And then eventually the immortals have descendants of their own. However, I don't have point of views on theirs. However, I think I might be able to have different point of views, their own story of their own. So anyways, it went from Guardians and the 13 Ghosts until years later, like 2 years ago, I wrote it again, rewrote it, like start from completely scratch, but still have the same characters as Prophecy, and I'm no longer going to be using that because that was the temporary title and it still is, but now I'm just calling it a dark fantasy story or novel because I know it's going to be a novel with for sure 6 characters' point of views, which is still quite a bit, but if this plot is what I think it is, I only have the summary of the plot, but I have the basic plot and the fleshed out plot out a little bit more, but it's still going to be in quite a bit of characters' point of views, not as many as the horror dark fantasy. It's going to be in 6 to 8 character point of views. I might be able to narrow it down, but there's going to be for sure 3 main characters point of view, 1 main character villain, and then there might be a chapter or 2 with the parents' point of views. And their point of views is necessary for this story because it's based on their kids, and that way they can see it. Especially on how I'm going to end this book, the first one, because it's going to end with a parent's point of view on what's going on with the final battle and the resolution. So what inspired me with this story was the fact that I always felt like an oddball, so I used that kind of feeling as an inspiration to write this story, because I was kind of different from my family with the creative section, because a lot of my family members, if not most of them, are always the backsides, and I wasn't, so I used that as a inspiration with my write-in for the story, and I just thought, like, okay, what if the animals and people were bonded in more than one kind of way, and we could use them as, not use them, but if we had them as our protectors and as our partners, how will we treat them, and how will we care for them? How will we help them? And how will we help each other? So the oddball inspiration and the animal inspiration was what created this story. I'm still technically working on it, but it is going to be my Nanowrimo project for this year. And I think that is it, because I don't really have too much to talk about this story. Not yet, anyways. But yeah, let me know down in the comments of what you think of all this, of all my writing projects. Well, I should actually explain why I do more than one project. I write more than one project because I like taking breaks from the main project, and I always start side projects. So on average, I start about 3 projects at least, because what ends up happening is that while I'm writing one story, I do hit roadblocks, and when I do, I normally just go for a walk and listen to music, but when that don't work, I start another project until inspiration or an idea comes to mind to fix the main project. So in this case, to fix that problem, prevent me from hitting that kind of roadblock-ish, was that my main project is the Spirit Dragon series, which is this guy here. So this is my main project. And then my side project, which is the Life of the Supernatural series, which is my Camp Nanowrimo project. And it will just be strictly for Camp Nanowrimo, because I don't know if any of them will ever hit a novel length. So those are going to be Camp Nanowrimo projects for that series. And for my November one, to take a break from the main project, will be this series alone, which will be about 4 to 7 books as well for this series, because I know it's going to be a novel length. And then during those months, I don't think about my main project. I just focus on the side projects. And then when that month is done, I go back to the main project with new eyes and new inspiration and try to work on that project and see if new ideas come to mind. So that is why I write more than one project at a time, and why it takes me slightly longer than my average. No, that's why it takes me a little bit to get one project done, because I start more than one project, but I also take proper breaks. So this way I can look at it from another perspective. And that's basically it. So now that is all I have for you. Let me know down in the comments of what you think of all this, and do you do more than one project? Or do you just focus on one project until it's published and then work on another project? Let me know down in the comments, and subscribe to my channel. Click the bell icon to get notified of all my posts, because I post videos once a week, every week, and then I post a video every other week on Fridays, and I do a live stream once a week. And during the month before Nanowrimo, Camp Nanowrimo, I technically do post videos twice a week, and I do a live stream once a week. So the schedule is going to be done just a little bit different in November. And the month before in October. And yeah, and subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon, because I post bonus videos all the time. So click that bell icon to get notified of all my posts, and follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook. Yeah, Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook. Links are down below. Click the like button, leave a comment down below, and thank you for watching. And I'll see you guys next time. And remember, stay true to yourself and stay unique. Bye!